Greetings and welcome to Road to Guitar Mastery, the ongoing show where I attempt to master the guitar by breaking it down into its most fundamental pieces. In today's episode, we are going to look at some cool ways to visualize modes built off the major scale. There are 7 notes for the major scale, and each can build a mode with a corresponding diatonic chord. Modes are what tell us the characteristics of those chords as well as the remaining notes from the scale that will fit over these chords. Here are the 7 parent modes alongside their kiddie chords. When the Roman numerals are uppercase, they denote major chords, or more literally, that the third of the chord is major. When they are lowercase, they represent the minor chords and diminished chord, which both have a minor third. So from this, we can already tell which modes correspond to a major third or a minor third. Now we are going to establish some simple rules to help us create visual patterns for these modes. This isn't necessarily something you have to know for this lesson, but for the sake of full disclosure, the patterns I'm going to present are based on the 3-note per string shapes. I will also be breaking these up into 3 2-string groupings to simplify the information. To start off, we will look at the 1 chord with its parent mode, Ionian. The first important interval we need to establish is the third, because this again is what makes a chord major or minor. Using the low E string as a reference point, we can see that a major third exists on the G string 1 fret higher than our root, and a minor third exists 1 fret below that, or on the same fret as our reference root. Because Ionian is a major mode, the third is also major. The next important interval we will look at is the 6th on the B string. 1 fret higher than our root will yield a minor 6th, and 2 frets higher, a major 6th. In Ionian, all the intervals are major or perfect, more on this in a bit, so we will use the major 6th. It's also important to note where the root lives on the B and high E strings, because this distance will be the same for every mode, considering these notes are octaves. We can now reference the 7th interval off this B string root. A major 7th is 1 fret down from the root, while a minor 7th is 2 frets down. With that said, let's take a quick moment to review. If you'd like, pause the video and try to figure out which intervals are major or minor for both examples. Alright, let's see how we did. In the first example, the third is minor because it is on the same fret as the reference root. The 6th is 1 fret away, making it minor, and finally the 7th is 2 frets down from the root on the B string, making it also minor. On the second example, our third is major, being 1 fret higher than our root on the low E string. The 6th is minor, 1 fret higher than the reference root, and finally the 7th is major, being only 1 fret lower than the B string root. Now we can look at the second half of our mode pattern, starting with the second interval. The 2s follow the same rule as the 6s, only on the high E string. 1 fret above our starting note is a minor second, and 2 frets is a major second. The third on the high E string follows the same rule as the 7s from earlier. 1 fret below the B string root is major, and 2 frets below is minor. Our 2 options for the 4th interval are either perfect or augmented. Perfect meaning the 4 is in its natural unaltered state, and augmented meaning the 4 is raised by 1 fret. As you can see, the perfect 4th is placed on the high E string, same fret as the B string root, and the augmented 4th would be 1 fret to the right of that. The last interval in a mode is the 5th, and we have 2 options for that as well. There is the perfect 5th in its unaltered form, and the diminished 5th 1 fret lower. Both intervals live on the B string above our original reference root. The only mode that will have a diminished 5th is the Lydian Mode. With all that said, the important thing to remember is the 6-note pattern and how it corresponds to the Ionian mode. Now let's look at the Dorian mode corresponding to our minor 2 chord. The first interval to note is that minor third on the same fret as our root. We can also see that the 6th is major, being 2 frets higher than our root. This major 6th in a minor mode, by the way, is the characteristic sound of the Dorian mode. We can also notice the minor 7th, the perfect 4th, the minor 3rd, and finally our major 2nd, which gives us the complete spelling for the Dorian mode. Notice the similarities and differences between our first 2 modal patterns. Here is our Phrygian mode that our minor 3 chord is based on. You'll notice that we have a minor 7th, 6th, 3rd, and 2nd in this mode, creating this distinct pattern. Next, we have the mode of our major 4 chord, Lydian. This is just like our Ionian mode, except with an augmented fourth, giving it a dreamy flavor. Then we have our 5-chord mode, Mixolydian. This is the same as the Ionian mode, but with a lowered 7th interval. The 6th mode is our natural minor scale, or Aeolian mode. It's characterized by a lowered 7th, 6th, and 3rd, making it similar to our other minor modes. The final mode corresponding to our diminished 7th chord is the Locrian mode, which has everything lowered except the 4th. This mode is just like the Phrygian mode with the addition of the lowered 5th. So here are our 7 mode shapes and what they look like on the B and high E strings. We can then split them into major and minor to look for more similarities. I found it interesting that all major modes have a major 2nd and major 6th, and all minor modes have the same tail end of the pattern. Also notice how the Phrygian and Locrian modes have the same exact pattern because there is no 5th presented, which is the only note that is different between the two. Now that we are familiar with the modal patterns, we can use this simple exercise to practice them. We first play the root and 3rd for reference, then the corresponding 6th note modal pattern. You can either go up and down the fretboard for each individual mode, or you can climb the modes in diatonic order. One more thing to note is that this exercise uses a 5-note per string strum, so that would be a good thing to isolate if you aren't already familiar with it. In future videos, I will add the modes of the minor scales, how these modes work for the remaining 4 strings, and finally, how to grow these shapes beyond the original 3-note per string designs. If you'd like to download the worksheet that contains these shapes in G major, follow the links in the description to either my MeWe or Patreon sites. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, leave them down below and I will do my best to get back to you. Thanks for tuning in to Road to Guitar Mastery, and I will see you all on the next episode. Take care, everyone.